Alright fellas, it's been a few days since Josh and Dubois faced off, and since that match I've seen social media trying to figure out where does the heavyweight division turn now. After a run of interesting wins and losses, we're left in a bit of a weird position where for the first time in about a decade we're potentially seeing the passing of the torch between this generation and the next. Today I want to have a look at what could be next for the division and who are the players involved. So let's get right into it. In the heavyweight division we have a ton of names being thrown about, but to help it make a bit more sense I'm going to break it down into two separate categories, those being the belt holders and the challengers. Now the belt holders, pretty straightforward. You have Usyk holding 3 of the 4 main belts, he's the top dog in the division. Then you have the newly crowned Dubois who holds the IBF belt. Yet also you only have one interim belt kicking about, that being the WBO which belongs to Joseph Parker. For the challengers, are we talking about anyone I can see being matched up for mega fights in at least the next couple years? Of course you got the likes of Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua, 3 of the biggest names in the division as well as the sport. Once you get to the sort of clout that these fighters have, they could go on to get knocked out a few more times in a row, but they'll still find themselves in mega fights purely down to the commercial dollar. Although age is a factor, the commercial dollar will push these fellas into big fights no matter what, assuming that they don't retire. As well as some of these big names, you also have a bunch of lesser known names. You have fighters such as Martin Bakole, who recently blasted onto the scene defeating unbeaten prospect Jared Anderson pretty ruthlessly, and was talking about a Joshua matchup in Africa before the weekend's result. You also have the likes of Usyk Caballel. Now this is a name you might not have heard of before. His best win comes against Frank Sanchez in his last fight on the Fury Usyk undercard. With a record of 25-0, he has placed himself in a position for a big shot soon. He is also ranked within the top 6 of all ranking bodies, going as high as number 2 with the WBC. Alongside him of course you have the likes of Zhilei Zhang, Ajagba, Michael Hunter, Justice Huni, I could go on and on. Yet now let's get back on track and talk about the future of the division. What big matchups can we see in the near future? Confirmed, of course, we got the Fury Usyk rematch, with all eyes being on this. The result of this fight will change the division as a whole. If Fury wins and claims the belts, then we would most likely have a trilogy fight. That's the least exciting result. Yet if Usyk beats Fury, that's when it gets a bit more spicy. If Usyk wins, I can't see him staying at heavyweight. Who else is there for him to fight? He's beat the likes of Fury, Dubois and Joshua. Unless he wants to take a few victory lap style fights, which I don't see happening unless it's Joseph Parker, then he's probably going to retire or move back down to cruiserweight. If that happens, the belts will scatter, and that's when it gets a bit more exciting. There is potential for the rematch between Joshua and Dubois. I would say this is pretty likely. Joshua still probably thinks he's better than Dubois, so I think he'll want to run this fight back. Yet if those belts scatter, it brings a lot more variables into the equation. If the belts scatter and the rematch doesn't happen, I think Dubois is likely to be matched up with Parker. In a matchup which might not be music to your ears, you are talking about Dubois coming off a KO victory against Joshua and Parker coming off 2 massive impressive victories against Zhang and Wilder. This would be some of the highest level heavyweight boxing you can currently make. And with both parties a part of Riyadh season, don't be surprised if this ends up happening. That of course leaves Joshua without a dance partner. For him, you look to the likes of Wilder and Fury next. Turki Al-Sheikh has been aiming to make one of these big matchups since entering boxing. And that's why I think if the belts scatter, the Dubois rematch plans will be thrown aside. Every time they've tried to make one of these bouts, something happens to ruin those plans. Yet if Fury loses, you are left with all 3 having a loss as their last fight. This gives the potential to see Joshua in the ring with either of them. Will it have the same meaning as it did prior? Not at all. Yet it will still generate significant hype. They all have big mouths and they have bigger egos. That's a recipe really for promotional success, and any potential fight like this would sell out arenas like Wembley with ease. If the belts do scatter, then the odds of one of these belts being on the line for one of these matchups is pretty high. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we saw Fury lose to Usyk and then all of a sudden the WBC belt is on the line for Fury versus Joshua. Although both would be coming off losses, the other major talent would be tied up and it leaves a few belts that they gotta make fights for. And of course, these belts would be designated to most likely whatever brings home the highest sanctioning fee. Riyadh season's main objective is to of course advertise the country Saudi Arabia. So if they can make big eye pullers such as a Joshua versus a Wilder or Fury, they will absolutely do it. So where does that that leave everyone else? Well, in my opinion, I think the likes of Bakole and Caballel are still probably a fight away from a true world title challenge. The belts will most likely be tied up for at least a year, and they will have to find fights in the meanwhile. Although age is catching up to many in the division, with a lot of rising talent such as Moses Atuma and Justice Huni, the division is in safe hands. Yet, for the moment, we are witnessing the rise of new stars, with fighters such as Dubois and Bakole yet to see their peak, while older fighters like Parker are having their new best run of form. Yet, if you're worried that some of the biggest matchups you've wanted to see have the potential not to happen, don't be. Money talks, and if the money makes sense, these matchups probably will happen at some point in the near future. With the Saudis involved, I can't see how Fury and Joshua doesn't occur. They will make this fight happen somehow, and with Wilder not retiring, he'll probably be thrown into other big fights and will be certainly back in the mix. Yet, as said before, watch the rise of the new stars, because they might be just as entertaining compared to what some of the big names truly have to offer. Anyways, now I want to hear what you think is going to happen next. What matchups do you see happening? Let me know all your thoughts down below. Yet, if this is your first time watching one of these videos, my name is Cloister and I make boxing content to help you stay informed. And if you enjoyed, it would mean a lot if you would consider liking or subscribing. But thanks for watching, fellas, and I'll catch you in the next one.